Good morning. Please stand, join me for number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath. Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Good morning. Welcome everyone to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where we join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or, as we like to say in short, to create community, find meaning, and live justly. Welcome to each and every one of you. As always, we embrace all that you bring with you to this space, your uniqueness, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences, all that helps make you who you are is welcome here this morning. And this includes those of you in the room with us, as well as those of you who are live streaming with us and those of you who are Zooming with us this morning. So welcome to one and all. I do want to begin. I just learned that one of our longtime members, Fran Williamson, passed away this week. At Rockwood Retirement Home, we're going to have our unity candle lit here throughout our services this morning in honor of her light in her life. And I do want to put in another reminder that our NAUA, North American Unitarian Association, first yearly summit is happening the weekend of October 18 through 20. If you would like to attend in person or online, and I hope you do, please register online at the nauunitarians.org website if you haven't done so already. Okay, let's, before we go into our welcoming of one another, and I'm going to welcome our friends. Actually, let's welcome our friends on Zoom. Are you able to put them up on our screen for us, Shelley? There they are. Oh my goodness. You guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine, Todd.
Great.
And I'd like to introduce to you a couple of volunteer hosts who have just been trained up and maybe they're the host on their Zoom group on Sunday. So
please do.
Jeffrey Bryson, standing on the top right, and Gail Sandin are both going to take a role on our sign-up list. So I'm really thrilled to have some new voices, and maybe they'll be able to think of some trivia to say to you each morning much better than I have been lately.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, it's hard to talk about the weather all the time because everybody knows that means we don't really have much to say, right? So. But it is good to hear from you. We don't have as much time as we used to because there are so many of you. But it's always nice to take a few moments to chat. So thanks to all of you for volunteering. Maybe Jeffrey and Gail could just introduce themselves in a line or two for us this morning if they're up to it.
I'm Gail Sandlin. I've participated with you folks for a while now. I'm a member of the Sailors Sea Fellowship in Port Townsend and glad to be with you. Looking forward to listening to your service, Todd. What a fascinating topic, intriguing nonetheless, and looking forward to an interesting conversation. And I hope I don't push the wrong button and we all disappear when I'm the host, but never mind. That's the future.
If you push the wrong button and everyone disappears, that's called a miracle. So
There you go.
how about Jeff?
I'm Jeffrey Bryson. I'm in Kennesaw, Georgia, and this is not my first Zoom meeting. I was here last week, the week before that. Very good topics. I keep getting lots of notes, and I have a lot of homework to do from what I'm hearing. and just like, I keep hoping like I'm going to have already read the books or looked at the topic or know something about what was been discussed, and like, no. It's just, and so it's always informative.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. We're glad to have all of you here and appreciate the two of you helping to volunteer on Sundays with our Zoom room. That I know that means a lot to the few who've already been doing it and get stretched kind of thin from time to time. So really appreciate it. And as always, great to have all of you.
Can I just give one more quick announcement?
Please do, Terry.
I just looked this morning, and there are 54 people going to be in Spokane at the NAUA Summit, and 58 people online. Not that there isn't room for more, but just thought I'd give you a sense of who you're hosting or the numbers. It's like how many people are coming to dinner? Well, which is literally a problem that Spokane is going to solve for us. 54.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Especially for our first yearly summit. And I'm sure there'll be more sign up as we get closer, because I know of at least 2 people that need to do it in my household. So so we'll add to that, as will other of the procrastinators among us, I'm sure. But that's great. We're looking forward to as many as we have being able to celebrate this major historical event in October. So, and Terry, thanks to you for all the help you've given, not only to make the yearly summit happen, but also Terry has been really instrumental in making our website, NAUA website, work. And I dare say without him, it would not work, and NAU, for all of practical purposes, would not exist, because without a website these days, you don't exist. So thank you, Terry.
Quite welcome.
Okay. Dog truth. Okay, I've got 2 more left on the card. So Gab's got a list ready. We're gonna continue this first service tradition from now on. But today's is by Derek Bruce. I don't know who Derek Bruce is, but here's what Derek has to say about it. Well, Derek's dog truth. Put it that way. In order to keep a true perspective of one's importance, everyone should have a dog that will worship him and a cat that will ignore him. We'll let the cat sneak in now and then if it's worthy of it, and it is. So let's take a few moments now to greet one another, as is also our custom on Sunday mornings.
It is nice. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, and as always, there will be more opportunity to visit during social hour, so please plan to stay around for that. We're going to move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Throughout history, many prominent theologians have struggled with the confines of their faith as they sought deeper understanding and a path towards enlightenment. After German pastor Dietrich Bonhoeffer's Lutheran Church swore its fealty to Hitler, Bonhoeffer resisted. He described a Christianity without religion in his letters and papers from prison. His last words before he was hanged by the Nazis in a concentration camp in 1945: "This is for me the end, the beginning of life." Another questioner was the prominent English bishop, John Robinson, the dean of Clare College at Cambridge, who in his controversial 1963 book, Honest to God, shocked his parishioners when he called for a revolution in Christian theology to elevate it above the confines of organized religion. "Not infrequently," he said, "as I watch or listen to a broadcast discussion between a Christian and a humanist, I catch myself realizing that most of my sympathies are on the humanist side. This is not in the least because my faith and commitment is in doubt, but because I share instinctively with the humanist his inability to accept the scheme of thought and mold of religion within which alone that faith is being offered to him. I feel he is right to rebel against it." Robinson urged a radical questioning of established religion as an essential act of spiritual growth. Today, the Reverend Todd Eckloff will explore his own radical questioning about the nature of God.
Please stand, join me for number 1007, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul.
We're now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning, and begin, as we have been, on behalf of the people of Ukraine and Russia and that part of the world that are suffering from the war and violence there, and a candle for the people of Israel and Palestinian people who are suffering from the war and violence there. And also a candle I think is appropriate this morning on behalf of everyone in our insane nation that can't seem to understand that there needs to be serious gun control laws in the country to prevent the unnecessary murders of innocent people. And I'm just going to ad-lib a little bit here, but the last 2 school shootings have resulted in a parent or parents of the shooters being charged with manslaughter for giving guns to their kids, which is not illegal. So perhaps it is time to begin arresting a few legislators for manslaughter who are equally as responsible for putting those guns into the hands of people who should not have them, which is essentially everybody. And the Supreme Court justices, some of them need to, the majority of them, sadly, need to be charged with manslaughter too. If they don't understand why a simple bump stock is not a constitutional right, they're unfit for office. So we have some raging light going on over there this morning too. But my gosh, nowhere else on earth does this happen. So a candle expressing our passion, our rage, our sadness, our sympathy. And as always, we'll take a moment of silence. You're welcome to name others at this time if you like. I think while I'm thinking about it, I'm also going to let one of those candles represent our good Unitarian friends at the Glacier UU Fellowship in Kalispell, Montana. I'm going to be speaking there next Sunday. It's been my honor to speak at that church, just I think at least twice a year for at least the past decade. And like me, they turned 60 this year. So I'm going to go and be their speaker, honored to be their speaker for their 60th celebration in existence. And I'm sure lighting a candle on their behalf is on behalf of our congregation. So if anybody from Glacier is attending this morning remotely, congratulations and our love to all of you on this major accomplishment. Glad to have you as our nearest Unitarian neighbors. So, yeah, let's just move on from there with our offertory. We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
Come on up to the house. The only things you can see is all that you lack. Come on up to the house. All your crying won't do you no good. Come on up to the house. Come down off your cross. We can use the wood. Come on up to the house. Come on up to the house. Come on up to the house. The world is not my home. I'm just a to the house. There's no light in the tunnel, no irons in the fire. Come on up to the house, and you're singing lead soprano in a junk man's choir. Come on up to the house. Does life seem nasty, brutish, and short? Come on up to the house. The seas are stormy and you can't find no port. Come on up to the house. Come on, I'm just a passing through. Come on up to the house.
Thank you, Madeline. Thank you, Maura. It is now time for our story for all ages. Let's see who has come to help us out today. Okay, this is, of course, is our old friend Purple. Purple, tired? What's the matter? You didn't get much sleep last night? How come? Well, there was a monster under my bed. There was a monster under your bed? What did it look like? Well, it was covered with hair from head to toe. Hair from head to toe? Yeah, and it had a long arm, and it would reach out and tickle my feet whenever I hung over the bed. Oh my goodness, I think a story, this is a historical story called No More Monsters. Do tell. Okay. So once upon a time, there lived a group of monsters who thought it was fun to scare people. There was Lanky Len, and he was a long-armed monster who loved to reach out from under the bed and wiggle his fingers at anyone brave enough to leave their legs hanging over its edge. Then there was Grumble, the monster who hid in the closet, rattling the doors just loud enough to make people wonder if there was something inside. Chuckles, the clown monster, made funny faces that were supposed to be silly, but sometimes they left people shaking in fear. And last but not least was Whisper, a shadowy figure that moved through the basements, whispering in the dark corners where no one ever dared to go. Oh, that does sound scary. Well, for as long as they could remember, scaring people was actually their favorite thing to do. They would pop out, growl, cackle, and float about, and the humans would squeal in terror, hiding under blankets and running away, and the monsters would just laugh and share their success stories with each other. Oh, those monsters are scary. Well, after a while, scaring people night after night got kind of boring. So Lanky Len, Grumbles, Chuckles, and Whisper decided to take a night off. Lanky Len stayed completely still under the bed, no reaching out his long arms. Grumble sat quietly in the closet, not rattling the doors at all. Chuckles stood in the hallway, silently grinning but without making a sound. And Whisper wandered through the basement without a single spooky whisper. But to their surprise, every time a person walked by, guess what happened? What? Well, even without being scary, the humans screamed as loud as always. Lanky Len scratched his head with his long fingers. I didn't even move. Grumble blinked in confusion. I didn't make a sound. Chuckles pouted. I was just smiling, I swear. And Whisper swirled into a corner, baffled. No whispers, not one. Well, the monsters gathered together at the end of the night, puzzled. Why are they screaming when we're not even trying to scare them, they wondered. Then, after a long silence, Whisper said, maybe they're not scared after all. Maybe humans just like to scream, no matter what we do. Well, the monsters looked at each other, thinking hard. What if it's true? What if people didn't need monsters to be scared? What if they just screamed because they felt like it? The thought made them laugh so hard that the monsters' bellies ached. We've been doing all this for nothing, Lanky Len giggled. Chuckles the clown giggled too. Maybe it's time we stop scaring people. The monsters all agreed. They'd worked so hard to be spooky, but it turned out humans were plenty scared on their own. So the monsters decided to retire. No more hiding under beds, no more rattling door closets, no more funny faces in the hallway, and no more whispers in the basement. They packed up their spooky tricks and they disappeared, leaving the humans to their peaceful nights. And they soon realized how much more they enjoyed not living under beds or in small closets and cold basements, and spent their days playing games and laughing and enjoying the peace and quiet and living together happily ever after. And ever since, people have been sleeping better than ever because there are no more monsters. Oh, that's a relief. Yes, and that, as I say, is a historically true story. So you can now rest assured, and you can also rest assured that people will still find reasons to scream over nothing.
As we prepare for meditation, I invite you to relax, breathe deeply, and do not scream. Please reflect on these words from poet Rainer Maria Rilke in his Letters to a Young Poet. I want to beg you to be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer.
If God had a name, what would it be, and would you call it to his face? If you were faced with him in all his glory, what would you ask if you had just one question? And yeah, God is great. Yeah, God is good. Yeah. What if God was one of us? Just a slob like one of us. Just a stranger on the bus trying to make his way home. If God had a face, what would it look like, and would you want to see? If seeing meant that you would have to believe in things like heaven and in Jesus and the saints and all the prophets, and God is great. Yeah, God is good. Yeah. What if God was one of us? Just a slob like one of us. Just a stranger on the bus trying to make his way home. Just trying to make his way
Wow, thank you so much. And I can answer that question. Partly, what if God was one of us, just trying to make his way home? Then we wouldn't be so worried about the border crisis as we might be worried about the lives of people being killed by lethal weapons, about people who are losing their insurance or having their fire insurance doubled because of the areas they live in, because of unaddressed global warming, of the hurricanes and the tornadoes and the floods and the landslides and so much more that are being unaddressed. We'd be worried about those if God was one of us. Well, listen, a lot of folks said they were really looking forward to this sermon. I didn't realize that me talking about God would be such a draw. Enthusiasm, enthusiasm actually is the words are in God, right? To be enthusiastic is a word where you're indwelled by God, right? Kind of like inspirited, same sort of idea. But just a little background. I did, for those who don't know, I did not grow up in a church-going family. My mother seemed to have an aversion to religion, and my father, who was a nut, had some nutty ideas about it. Makes sense? Yet just hearing him sometimes speak of God led me, as a small person, to believe that such a being exists. There was little more theological context than this, but I somehow got the idea that God exists everywhere in nature and the universe and sees everything. And from this, I imagined this gigantic being sitting in empty space with a tall body that looked like a tree with arms and legs and long pointed fingers that were like branches. Its head was the Milky Way, because what images I had seen of it at that time reminded me of an enormous all-seeing eye. It still does. That was my first idea of God, a giant galaxy-headed tree. I was 13 when the movie Oh God was released, in which there was a scene that made a significant impression on me. God, played by George Burns, and his chosen prophet, played by John Denver, long before I was a fan, are in a hotel answering some questions that they'd been sent by a group of religious authorities, including the question, is Jesus Christ the Son of God? Jesus was my son, God responds. Buddha was my son, Muhammad, Moses, you. The man who said there was no room at the inn was my son. And so is the one who charges $11 for steak in this one. Let's march on. I didn't know much about Christianity or any other religion at the time, but I liked the tolerance and openness of these words. It made sense to me. Alas, only a year later, I became a born-again Christian and very quickly learned that there is only one way to salvation, which included one right way to think about God. The decade I then spent as a Christian wasn't all bad. I was involved with many good-hearted people that taught me how to be with others in a caring and respectful community. But remaining accepted as part of such a community also meant that I had to begin to shut down my own mind, believe what I was taught, and not ask any serious questions. Now, these years culminated with me attending a Southern Baptist college, earning a degree in philosophy from their Bible department, which was a ministerial tract, and even being ordained as a Southern Baptist minister. But I only lasted a semester at the Baptist seminary, where I met Peggy, and we got married, and so that's another great outcome of this period in my life. I'd gone to seminary to complete my theological studies. But I quit upon realizing that I simply couldn't believe any of it anymore. And I attribute this awakening to my excellent college professors, all of whom were Baptist ministers themselves, yet who taught me how to think and wonder and doubt. Were it not for them, I might very well be a Baptist to this day. I'm not sure my departure from Christianity was the outcome they had intended. But I remain deeply grateful to all of them and continue to have much love for these good men who gave me the intellectual skills I needed to more fully unfold as an individual and as a human being. If I were to single out just one of them as the most important, it would easily be my philosophy professor, Dr. Wallace Roark. Although I am not a believer anymore, his theology has had a lasting impact on my thinking. He often summarized his with the phrase, God is relative. In 2013, he finally wrote a book about what he'd been teaching his students for decades, in which he writes, God is relative. There are no absolutes, and that is the good news. The bad news is that so few of us are ready to think this through and to believe that this is good news. We have been misled by nearly 2,000 years of absolutist interpretations of the good news, the Christian gospel. We have been easy to mislead because there is not much in this threatening world of flux that we desire more than certainty and security. We crave absolutes. Although Dr. Roark is still a Southern Baptist and a believer, at least in a God who is relative, and I am not, those familiar with my sermons may hear in his words the continuing influence that he's had on my thinking. Without going into what he specifically means by God is relative, for me, it is best reflected in a verse from the Gospel of Matthew, where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there I am with them. The idea here is not that Jesus is physically or literally present, not even as an unseen ghost. Ooh, purple, it's okay. But that he becomes practically present when we relate to one another in the ways that he taught, by demonstrating the kind of care, compassion, and acceptance for one another. So even though I'm an atheist, in the sense that I don't believe in a personal God, in a person named God, I still agree with Dr. Roark that God is relative, meaning that we make and can only make our values real through our relationships, in the ways that we treat each other, other people, other creatures, and the environment, all our relations. God is relative. For a long time, I called myself an atheistic mystic, a term I borrowed from social psychologist Erich Fromm. He used it to describe himself because he didn't believe in a personal God either and felt that any attempts to define God could only lead to error. Rather, he believed that we must come to understand that God represents our own principles and our highest aspirations, the best version of ourselves. At the highest level of theological maturation, Fromm says that God is transformed from the figure of a father into the symbol of his principles, those of justice, truth, and love. God is justice, truth, and love. In this development, God ceases to be a person, he says, a man, a father. He becomes a symbol of the principle of the unity behind the manifoldness of phenomenon. God cannot have a name. A name always denotes a thing, a person, something finite. How can God have a name if he's not a person, not a thing? I agree with Fromm, and I don't believe it's rational or productive to speak of a personal God. which is what most people using the term are referring to. But if one wishes to theologize about the values and principles that I do believe in, defining God as the equivalent of love or truth or justice or mercy or brotherhood and sisterhood or reason or freedom or tolerance or human dignity and so forth, then I would say that I have to believe in God since I believe in these principles. If that's what God is, yes, I'm on board. Remaining clear, however, that God is but a symbol of my principles, not a person or a being of any kind. In this way, God can only exist in our relationships where two or more are gathered and demonstrating these principles amongst themselves. Whether this is entirely what Dr. Roark means or not, it is what his phrase, God is relative, has come to mean to me, and is why I often say, just because I'm an atheist doesn't mean I don't believe in God. As rational as this view may sound, it should not be taken to mean I don't deeply appreciate the great mystery of our existence, nor that my life isn't filled with awe and wonder and the recognition that there is infinitely more to be known than can ever be known. As Dr. Roark taught me about everything, not just theology, there are no absolutes, and that is the good news. It doesn't always feel like good news because humanity, like all creatures, have evolved to be cautious, to stick with the behaviors that haven't gotten us killed so far, the tried and the true, which is why we crave absolutes. But once we accept that there aren't any real absolutes and come to accept the uncertainty of our existence, the uncertainty of our beliefs and ways and future, something marvelous begins to happen. We come to enjoy life far better than was possible when we deceived ourselves with false but comforting certainties. This is so because the experience of awe and wonder is immensely more profound and desirable than the anxious and unfulfilled lives we live in pursuit of unobtainable certainties, no matter how certain we may feel. And this is what Fromm meant by atheistic mysticism. The root of the word mysticism, as you've often heard me say, is mist, the same as in mystery. Mystics live in the mist. It is the place they most enjoy and feel most at home in. They are comfortable with doubt, uncertainty, and sometimes being completely dumbfounded. For such states, which can truly leave us speechless, dumb, with our mouths dropped open, right, are the precursors of higher states of profound awe and wonder. Those mountaintop experiences that we're fortunate to have on occasion, the ahas. So the mystic delights in seeking answers to the unknown, for that is where the mystery exists. That's where we thrive. But it's also fine with discovering nothing but more questions. Therefore, the mystic isn't skeptical or pessimistic, but open and optimistic. Mystics may not find the answers they seek, but they do not mistake this to mean that there are no answers. And so they remain in the mist, in the mystery, the uncertainty, groping in the darkness that the poet Rainer Maria Rilke said he loved more than all the fires of the world. To put it simply, trying to solve mysteries is fun. That's right, there's crossword puzzles in the paper every day. One mystery that I've not been able to solve is the phenomenon psychologist Carl Jung referred to as synchronicity, whatever else others might call it, which he defined as an uncanny, acausal, connecting principle. Some would dismiss such events as mere coincidence, and maybe that's all they are. But all of us have them, fairly frequently. And sometimes they are simply too weird to easily dismiss as such. They make us feel as if there must be some invisible power guiding us or watching over us. When we're caught up in the immediate and inexplicable experience of such synchronicity, the alignment of our stars, it's easy to feel this way. But once we begin to consider all the misery and suffering in the world, innocent children dying in Gaza, people's homes and communities being demolished in Ukraine, militant gangs controlling the streets of Haiti, and so on, it's difficult to conclude that from a few inexplicable events that are relative only to our own lives indicate there is a reason for everything, as some say, let alone that there is an intelligent, omnipotent, and loving God in control. I cannot explain why in our personal lives synchronicities sometimes happen that are strange enough to make us believe something mysterious has happened. But I believe they do. Nor can I explain why, if such meaningful events occur on such a small scale, they do not occur on a larger scale. To fix some of our greater challenges. But I believe this is also the case. Yet in my attempt to understand this puzzle, this paradox, I begun to wonder if synchronicity, to use Jung's term, like gravity and electromagnetism, is akin to the weakest of the four fundamental forces in physics, gravity. Now, this gets a little confusing even to me because one of those forces is called the weak force, which refers to electrons that are so loosely bound that the atoms around them can be caused to decay. Yet the weakest of the four fundamental forces is not the weak force, but gravity. And to call it weak is tremendously overstated, because gravity, after all, is the force that holds our planet as well as our entire solar system and galaxy in place. It allows us to walk on the earth but not float off of it. In a world where there is often so much suffering, perhaps similarly, there's just enough synchronicity to hold us together, even amidst all the uncertainty and the pain. Just as there seems to be just enough gravity to hold the stars in place amidst all the dark emptiness of space. Gravity exists in just the right balance. If it were too strong a force, everything would be crushed and compressed into a singularity too tightly bound to establish the diversity of elements necessary to create stars and planets, let alone life. And if it were any weaker, nothing would bond or pair, leaving us in the same situation with the dead universe. If, as Jesus taught, God is love, and if love is just another word for allurement or attraction, then perhaps God is gravity, the weakest of all forces, yet enough of a force to bring us together and hold us together amidst all the other forces working to crush us or tear us apart. As cosmologist Brian Swim says, nothing in all science has been established with greater attention and detail than this primary attraction of each part of the universe for every other part. Newton may have been the first to realize such a force must exist in order to explain the synchronistic movements of the objects on earth with those in heaven. But he did not understand how it worked, how it was possible for bodies to attract each other from such vast different distances with nothing but empty space between them. Like Jung's synchronicity, it had to be true in order to explain these seemingly acausal connections, but it still seemed uncanny and mysterious. And this is not unlike what Einstein must have felt when he used the phrase spooky action at a distance when referring to the immediate connection between paired particles separated across vast distances. But the answer became easy to understand once that's what is not empty. There is really no distance between us. It is filled with electromagnetic forces, another of those four fundamental forces. And this is what enables things that seem separate to act upon each other because they are all connected by this mediating force that touches and connects everything. Like what happens when a person is sitting on a trampoline when somebody else suddenly jumps onto it. This may be akin to what's happening when we experience uncanny coincidences. They seem uncanny and acausal because we cannot see the connections between them that occur in space-time. Not in space and time, in space-time. The term Einstein used when he realized that space and time are not separate events, even though they appear to be, at least to us. In our case, we can't see the cosmic trampoline we're sitting on because our senses have not evolved to perceive it. But we know it's there, that space is not empty, and that everything, including time and space, is tied together with what have aptly become known as Faraday strings. Strings that have been woven into the electromagnetic field connecting everything that is. It's all connected. Tap on the spider's web and the spider feels it and drops to the center. So that's a lot of physics, even more than I understand. But simply put, if space and time are connected, if they are really one thing, space and time, and there's a connection between quantum particles that may be separated by vast differences, it may explain the occasional but seemingly acausal coincidences in our lives. They seem uncanny, weird, spooky to us, just as physics seems to the likes of Newton and Einstein, who couldn't fully understand how their own theories worked. Similarly, because we are able to see the connections between these synchronistic events, or unable, I should say, to see the connections between these synchronistic events, we may, like our primitive ancestors, conclude some magical God must be responsible, or some version of God like a benevolent universe or providence. To realize such connections, invisible and inexplicable as they are, might sometimes lead to positive coincidences in our lives and may be astonishing, but we must recall whatever these forces are, such outcomes are not ubiquitous and do not justify believing that all is good or that everything is always going to work out for its best. At best, like gravity, it means there is a force that pulls us together in difficult times so that we have the support necessary to get through whatever difficulties we face. But we still have to go through them. So that's another potential definition of God. Close to Dr. Roark's God is relative, but better stated, God is relativity. It's another theological idea of mine that I've only just begun developing, and for now prefer to summarize it by saying God is a weak force. But my favorite non-personified definition of God is summarized by the phrase, God is reality. I came up with this as a consequence of researching and writing my dissertation on the psychology of religion. It was an overview of what classical, developmental, and some modern psychologists say about religion. Some of them believe that it is a positive force in our lives and others a destructive force. What I came to realize from this effort is that it can be both. We can use religion productively to help us better cope with the harsh realities of life, or use it to deny these realities and drive us deeper into our delusions. These are the purposes of religion, as far as I can tell, to help us deal with reality or to deny it. However we use it, to guide us towards sanity or away from it, its focus is on reality. And this is why, shifting from psychology back to theology, I also like to say that God is reality. So much of what theologians say about God, whom I don't believe exist, is true of reality, which I not only believe exists, but believe is the only thing that does exist and can exist. Reality is everywhere and in everything, because all that exists must be real. As the Gnostic Gospel says of the kingdom of God, reality is in you and all around you. And what the priests and preachers of most religions say about God is true of reality, that we should spend our lives seeking it. We must not turn away from reality. Alas, like Moses, seeing only a part of God's backside, our human minds cannot comprehend the whole of reality. But when we do sometimes catch glimpses of what is real, we are awestruck, and our lives and our societies can be transformed from the encounter. What we know of reality should be our guide. We should devote our minds and our hearts to reality and our lives to its pursuit. So much of what people say about God, so many of the praises they sing can be said and sung about reality, because God doesn't exist and reality does. So even though I wouldn't say God is real, I'm happy to say God is reality. And this is why the very last sentence of my dissertation says, reality is at once the most abundant resource in the universe and its rarest gem. It's abundant because reality is the only thing there is. It is its rarest gem because it is so hard to grasp and impossible for us to fully understand. So these are some of my theological meanderings, leading me to believe that God represents our values and our fullest potential. God is incarnated in our just and compassionate relationships with one another. God is a weak force that draws us and holds us together. God is in you and all around you, and is the only thing that is, because God is reality. Then again, what do I know? I'm only an atheist. Thank you.
Please stand. Join me for number 326, Let All the Beauty We Have Known. Let all the beauty we have known illuminate our hearts and minds. Rejoice in wonders daily shown, in faith and joy and love that binds. We celebrate with singing hearts the loveliness of sky and earth, the inspiration of the arts, the miracle of every birth. Life's music and its poetry surround and bless us through our days. For these we sing in harmony.
Let us depart today with a benediction from our hymnal by the Reverend John Brigham. Go your ways, knowing not the answers to all things, yet seeking always the answer to one more thing than you know. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.